Well, that was quite the entrance you've made, but you couldn't have picked a worse time to fall out of the sky. Looks like you've landed in Salem, Massachusetts. You know, the place with all of the witches and whatnot? Yeah, that one. Now don't be fooled. It may seem like a simple, peaceful, and wholesome village. Tread carefully, because one wrong move could have you swinging from a rope. So, do you think you could survive this Puritan hellhole? Let's find out. Welcome to Salem, Massachusetts. Founded in 1626, the settlement of Salem quickly established itself as a bastion for English Puritans. They were a group of religious nutjobs who sailed over from across the pond after facing religious persecution. Basically, their religion was a tad too crazy, even for the Church of England. You see, Puritans wholly believed that they were God's chosen few, that only they would be allowed through the cloud-covered pearly gates and everyone else could kick rocks. In hell. They also believed that Big Red Spirit Halloween Satan himself roamed the earth, wreaking havoc as a full-time job. Anything odd or inexplicable was the devil's doing, and any acts of the devil were met with swift punishment. Excuse me, what are you doing? Oh, just having a whistle. Oh. Not in this village, you're not. Pardon me, what are you doing? Oh, for fuck. Being a Puritan society, religious figures were the ones that ruled, and the biblical texts were the rules. Whatever the book says goes, with no room for improvisation. The church itself controlled everything, from the way you walked to the way you talked, from how you were dressed to what you'd ingest. But the church often stressed how you should feel blessed, so if you've ever felt repressed, you must confess or be placed under arrest. Gotta love a concentrated society of religious fanatics. What could go wrong? Right? Fast forward several decades, and here we are in a cold January in 1692, the start of a new year for the town. Well, you've got to get to fitting in, so best introduce yourself.
Good morrow.
Hello.
Pardon?
Bad move. The word hello won't be used as a greeting for another 100 years.
Thou art not from around hither, art thou?
No?
Methought so.
Try again.
Good morrow.
Good morrow. That's better. Remember, the great thing about a small village like this is that everyone knows each other. The worst thing is that everyone knows each other. But it looks like you're about to run into someone familiar?
Dude!
Ron? Is that you?
Yes, sir.
Where the hell did you come from?
Well, I saw this cool little green portal thingy and jumped right on through. Heck of a ride. Wouldn't do it again, though. It inverted my belly button and made me piss myself. Anyway, look who I found.
Who's that?
This loose slab of butter right here is my great something or other Uncle Jimothy, Salem's finest blacksmith, so I've been told.
Oi, how'd you figure that out?
Well, I asked him. But I also researched him on MyHeritage.
MyHeritage? You mean today's sponsor?
That's the one. The #1 online database for discovering your family's roots. No need to drool on a DNA swab. I just signed up and began putting in some very basic information like names and dates, granting me access to over 36 billion public records right at my fingertips. All it took was the magic 7 to sow the seed. Parents, grandparents, and yours truly. And get this, their instant discoveries feature helped me streamline the process to connect parts of my family tree that I never knew existed. Look, when I found out that my maternal side was a bit, questionable, I started looking towards my dad's side. That's when I found this big old boiling bowl of broth. Sure, the art of photography is way after his time, but I mean, come on. The stance, the affinity for orange, the eyebrows. This fella's a fart knocker through and through. But any of my photogenic relatives could get special treatment through the MyHeritage photo enhancement feature to go from looking good to looking fantastic. Look at that. Whoop, whoop, whoop. What a handsome fella. There's always something new to discover about your own beautiful bloodline to see where your roots come from.
Well, that sounds pretty neat. How's it done?
Well, it's easy. Just navigate your cursor or finger to click that link in the pinned comment below to start a 14-day free trial today to see if it whets your whistle. It's free for 14 days. Anyways, where were we?
I think we were just talking about... The hell was that?
Let's check it out.
Oh boy, the two girls pitching a fit on the ground are none other than 12-year-old Abigail Williams and 9-year-old Betty Paris. Their actions are about to set forth quite a series of unfortunate events, and they won't even star Jim Carrey. Looks like this calls for a doctor's opinion. Hi,
this be a case of witchcraft.
No way. If there's one place you don't want to be in this world, it's being in the middle of a religion-obsessed community that's been given the news that the devil himself may be walking amongst them. The news of the girl's possible bewitchment set the entire village of Salem completely on edge. Despite a solid month of good old homemade remedies like fasting, burning herbs, Jorkin crystals, or that iconic prayer mumbo-jumbo, nothing seemed to work. Were the girls just joshing? Or was something more malevolent lurking in the shadows? Samuel Parris, the town's minister and father to Itty Bitty Betty, was desperate for answers. Finally, someone offered a more creative approach. Entering stage left is Samuel's neighbor, Mary Sibley. Entering stage right are Sam Parris's personal servants, John Indian and Tituba.
They're slaves.
Together, the three concocted a plan to fight fire with fire. Since desperate times call for desperate measures, this brought the concept of counter magic to the table. Although a potential solution, however a bunch of baloney it may be, the act of performing counter magic was just as offensive in the eyes of Puritans as black magic, and just as dangerous.
Shoo-ba-da-boo!
But what are you gonna do? Just let your daughter or niece scream and flail about on the ground like they were told no at a toy store? Didn't think so. So, Reverend Parris did what he had to do. The proposed solution? Just bake a cake. Now, it's easy to bake a pretty cake, but you gotta do the cooking by the book. And this is the book. So, this is the cake. Made from a mix of rye flour and, I shit you not, a cup of the afflicted's own urine, this disgusting dessert was then offered to the Parris' dog as a way to ward off these sinister symptoms and, in turn, cause physical harm to the witch responsible for casting the curse. Shockingly, it didn't work. And to make matters worse, 2 more young girls were getting down with the sickness. The girls claimed that they were being constantly tormented by evil spirits, but none of the other villagers ever witnessed the supposed spooky specters.
My sweet spazzing children, who did this to you?
Oh, hell no!
The girls named 3 women as witches: Tituba, Sarah Good, and Sarah Osborne. The 3 were arrested and brought before a court to confess their crimes. Both Sarahs maintained their innocence, but Tituba caved. She confessed that she, along with Sarah 1 and Sarah 2, were wicked witches. Now, why in the frickin' heck would she do this, you might ask, scratching your itchy kneecaps? Because Sam Parris, her master, told her to. After being formally accused, Tituba was threatened to admit guilt or be smashed KO'd off screen with 0 stock. So which do you choose? Death at the hands of a single man, or by a jury of your peers? She chose the latter. But to throw a wrench into things, Tituba offered one more tidbit of information. There were more witches in the village. She just didn't know who. It could be anybody. Little Anne could have an evil plan, Big James could be casting flames, could it be Johnny with his golden fiddle, or Tom whose last name is Riddle? No one knew, and that was the problem. In one fell swoop, Tituba used history's greatest weapon: fear. And this wasn't just the run up my basement steps really fast so the demons don't get me type of fear. This was full-blown paranoia. And paranoia is an unlubed shaft just aching to cause some damage. Fear was at an all-time high, and trust was at an all-time low. With neighbors now turning on each other at the slightest inconvenience, this led to an overwhelming increase in accusations. So let's take a look at what it took to be accused of witchcraft. When paranoia goes full tilt, no one is safe. No man, woman, child, or even the village dog is free from suspicion.
Can I pick that dog?
Between February of 1692 and May of 1693, it's believed that over 200 people in and around Salem were accused of witchcraft. The main character in a lot of these allegations was 12-year-old Ann Putnam Jr., who was personally responsible for putting over 60 innocent people on trial, some of whom were executed. But you didn't have to be caught red-handed smearing toad blood in a pentagram of candles to be considered an evil witch. Even simple, everyday tasks or coincidences were viewed as the devil's work to a bunch of cuckoo crazy people. If you found yourself strong enough to lift a heavy gun, it's cause the devil helped you, so now your days are done. If you can kill off crops with just a single glance, there's not much I can say. You don't stand a chance. If you brewed a bit of food that a rude dude chewed and subsequently spewed, your years of life accrued were about to conclude. Even petting a black cat without giving a dang, each one of these reasons was enough for you to hang. Now if you think that these were just dope rhymes with no reason, you're wrong. These were very real claims by the people of Salem. George Burroughs, one of Salem's ex-ministers, was a beefy boy. He lifted a really heavy musket when no one else could. Very impressive, but a bit too impressive. He was tried and executed. Martha Carrier faced the gallows after apparently hexing and killing a neighbor's entire livestock by just looking at them. It was pure mayhem, but not everyone agreed with what was going on. Luckily, some sound-minded villagers were not buying the bullshit, and many protested the imprisonment of obviously innocent people. Unluckily, those who called the trials a bunch of baloney were also thrown in the clink.
This is a bunch of baloney. This ain't witchcraft.
Ron? Oh no, looks like Ron's about to face a fate worse than death. The legal system. Well, time for a trial. Here we are, the trials of the century. Well, I guess multiple centuries since we're still talking about them. News of witchcraft allegations reached far and wide, prompting intervention from the Massachusetts government to sort it all out. Thus, the Salem Witch Trials commenced, fancy powdered wigs and all. You know, English things. Thankfully, since the trials happened only a few hundred years ago, there's still lots of surviving documents from Salem. Lots of them. So we can still get a pretty clear picture of how everything went down, or at least the version that was written. The court structure was very similar to what it is today. A judge, a jury, witnesses, testimonies, all that. But sprinkling in the complete paranoia that infested the village, things got interesting. The main accusers, the teenage girls Abigail Williams and Ann Putnam Jr., were present at pretty much every trial, much to the dismay of anyone whom they accused. If the defendants gave any attempt at denying the allegations, then the show would start. For poor Bridget Bishop, the girls claimed that they were being tortured by her evil spooky ghost. The girls would break out into fits and convincing seizures in court to make it seem like Bishop was cursing them from afar, like a witch would.
That's not how that works.
Bridget Bishop was convicted and hanged on June 10, 1692. Miss Martha Corey's testimony saw some real creativity. After publicly calling out the girls on their bullshit, Martha put herself in the crosshairs and was forced to defend her own innocence in court shortly after. While giving her testimony, the girls began to mimic her movements. When Martha raised her hand, so did the girls. If she turned her head, they followed. The girls cried out, claiming that they were being puppeted by the devil, and Martha was the one pulling the strings.
Art thou fucking serious?
72-year-old Martha Corey was convicted and hanged on September 22nd, 1692. Martha's husband, Giles, is probably the most famous death of these Salem Witch Trials. But the guy was a certified asshole, having turned on his own wife after she was accused, ultimately testifying against her and giving examples of her witchcraft, like reading too much or nagging him too often. He did later attempt to rescind these allegations, but it was a bit too late as she was already doomed to hang. Now, with Giles being on trial himself, he refused to plead guilty or not guilty. He knew that regardless of his plea, he would still end up being converted to a human wind chime. Boy, was he wrong. Instead, he was given more pressing matters. Literally. As punishment for his supposed crimes, Giles was forced to endure peine forte Dieu. That's French for strong and hard pain. What this meant was being laid on the ground under a board. Big, beautiful boulders were added to the board, distributing their weight across his body. Hundreds of pounds of stone pressed down on Corey across 3 whole days. His final words?
More weight.
He was 81, but now it looks like it's Ron's turn to defend himself. Let's see how that goes.
Ronald J. Fartknocker, thou hast been accused of witchcraft. What say you in your defense?
I didn't do shit. He's innocent!
Huh? What's all this?
Your Honor, I've known Ron for years. We've been through so much together.
That's right. We sort of survived a whole nuclear apocalypse together. He knows what a real witch is. She's been using powerful magic to torment him for years, sending him all across time. Greece, Japan, Egypt, you name it.
It's true. Wait a minute. I only ever told you about the nuclear apocalypse. How did you know about the others?
You just couldn't go along with it, could you? And here I thought you were a smart fella, not a fart smeller.
You're not Ron. You're...
No. Took you long enough.
That's a witch.
Well, we've never really burned a witch before, but we'll take your word for it.
Yeah, it'll work. Remember, you can sign up for a 14-day free trial with MyHeritage today to start exploring your own family tree. Links in the pinned comment below. Okay, love you. Bye.